There are three big Photoshop mistakes that landscape photographers are making that destroy their photos, and it's only going to get worse over the next year as Adobe keep introducing more and more fancy new AI features. You might not even notice these mistakes until you've printed a photo large or entered it into a competition and people look at it closely, and by then, of course, it's too late to fix. So in this video, I'm going to show you what these mistakes are, why they can easily sneak into your photos, and how you can avoid ever making these mistakes again. But first, let me ask you, have you ever opened up a photo on your computer and thought the composition was slightly off and you just wished that you could go back and point the camera a little bit more to the left or to the right? Well, if so, then Photoshop's Generative Expand feature promises to let you fix that in editing without having to go back and reshoot it. And it seems that Adobe want you to believe that it can be as simple as using the crop tool to expand your canvas and then let artificial intelligence fill in the gap with its Generative Expand feature. But there are big problems with how this actually works. The first problem is like trying to accurately paint a picture of the Manhattan skyline, having only ever seen what Brooklyn looks like. If AI has to guess what to fill the space in with, then your expanded image isn't going to actually be what was really there. And if you're shooting something that's recognizable, you're just setting yourself up for failure, because it'll be pretty embarrassing when someone points out how your photo is fake because
that's not what it really looks like.
But let's say that you only need it to expand something that's not recognizable. Maybe just some grassy fields or the ocean or some trees, for example. Even then, Generative Expand can still create an amateurish mistake that you might not notice until it's too late. Just look at this example zoomed out. It looks fine, right? Well, how about when I zoom in and pay closer attention to the details? It's like we've done our Manhattan painting using crayons. Close up, the details are completely blurred and pixelated. And why is that? Well, it's because generative AI still only creates pixels up to a certain resolution, so anything larger than its maximum. And it's like copying and pasting a tiny patch of your photo back into your image and then stretching it over the whole thing. So how do you solve this problem then? Well, you may have seen other videos that explain how all you need to do is fill in these gaps in small 1000 by 1000 pixel chunks instead of using Generative Expand in the crop tool. And then the generated pixels won't be stretched over that large area. But quite honestly, that's often a bunch of hooey as well. Doing it in these small chunks can give you a slightly better result, but it's still going to give you a kind of error that might sneak past you if you're not paying attention. Because when you look closely at this example I made earlier, you can see that there's a visible line between the original pixels and the AI generated pixels. And Photoshop just cannot replicate the natural patterns and textures of the original landscape. So what is generative fill actually good for then? The good news is it's not completely useless. It's actually pretty useful and can produce really wonderful results in the right scenario. So I'll show you how to do that in just a second. But for now, unless Photoshop gets some severely upgraded AI technology, then the next year is going to be full of photos being shared that have this horrible editing mistake when it comes to the expanded edges. Now, the one thing that AI is best at in Photoshop is removing small objects and distractions from your photos. But yet again, there's a right way and a wrong way to do it. And the problem is Adobe have packaged the wrong way into a tool that they want us to use to make it seem as easy as a single click. And it sounds great to do things in a single click, right? It's good marketing from Adobe, but this one thing in particular is going to result in photographers ruining their photos in so many other ways. First, let me show you how easy Adobe want it to be to remove distractions from a photo, like people. With the Remove Object tool selected, I can click Find Distractions and then click People. And we can see a purple overlay on the areas that Photoshop thinks that there are people there that we want to remove. So all we have to do next is click this button to remove them. And bam, the people are gone. But in their place, check this out, a huge editing problem. Because look closely at what it replaced the people with. Garbage pixels, barely even a close approximation of what was actually behind them. And the sneaky thing about it is that it's close enough to pass at a quick glance, which is all that matters when these awesome new features are being marketed and demoed. But the good news is that it's not all doom and gloom. This one is fixable, or should I say doable properly in a different way, because nothing can fix this mess. So let me just undo that auto people removal and I'll show you the best current way to get rid of them. What you need to do is take the lasso selection tool, draw a selection around individual or small groups of people, and then right click the selection and choose Generative Fill from the pop-up menu. Then hit Generate and just wait for Photoshop to do its magic. And it is pretty close to magic doing it this way because check this result out. Much, much better. Now it's not perfect and I'll show you why and how to fix that next, but it is a lot better than the Auto Remove tool. And doing it this way, you get to choose from 3 generated versions in case one is better than the others. And these options aren't available in the Auto method either. So the third editing mistake that these fancy new tools are creating for us photographers is the sneakiest one of them all. It's like a plastic apple in a bowl of real fruit. It looks like an apple at a glance. From a distance you might not notice, but the closer you get, the more you realise that something's not quite right and it looks out of place. Well, it's the same thing with these generated pixels in Photoshop. So next, let me show you this problem and then how you can easily fix it. So if I zoom in close, you can see these generated pixels are ever so slightly smoother and more glossy than the original pixels. A plastic apple among the real fruit of my photo. But luckily this one is an easy fix because you can just use the add noise filter on a low setting, and it's going to rough up these glossy pixels to make them look more real so that they blend more naturally with the photo. But even if you manage to avoid making these 3 editing mistakes, then there's something even more important to keep in mind. No amount of editing can save a photo that wasn't great to begin with, and that's why starting with amazing photos is the real key to creating stunning results. And so if you want to learn how to do that, then watch this next video.